Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us and watching episode 6 of Unlock and Learn. This is take two, actually, because you know what? Mistakes happen. So we want people to understand that don't sweat the small stuff. I forgot to hit record last week. So I am just super excited to be here again with Kristen Goulet from the 100 Collection. Kristen, tell us a little bit about you.
Hey, Talia, thanks for having me. So, I've worked in the vacation rental industry since 2007. I started off working for a local property management company where I am based in Charleston, South Carolina, and worked there for 12 years. And got my start just kind of wearing every hat that you wear on the manager side. And then I came over to the vendor supplier side in 2018, which is how you and I connected. Day one, working
Mm-hmm.
together at Camp Rented and spent 4 years at Rented, which is where I met my current boss, Travis Wilburn, founder of Blue Cedar Partners and the 100 Collection, where I've been the last couple of years. So it's great to be on with you today. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, and it's been a whirlwind of time. We've known each other since 2018, and I just love to tell the story of how you meet people in this industry. I think Chris and I have probably been in front of each other less than 10 times in our life, which is sad to say,
That's wild
being
to
that
think about too.
we've known each other for 6 years through 4 kids total. On our first day, Cliff Johnson was our boss, co-founder of Vacasa. He dropped us off at our vacation rentals separate times, and he introduced us over a group text. We
Yep,
texted each other and said, "Do you want to go off to the grocery store?" And I think it was love at first sight, is what we
it
call it.
was.
Our husbands are okay with the work wifey
Yeah.
situation. Awesome. Well, I'm super excited to have you here today. I mean, I love talking with you about all these things all the time, but specifically, why are we here, right? Why did we want to have this conversation today? And I think that everyone, whether or not you are a professional homeowner, a professional property manager, or you're just looking to come into Airbnb, there's just always these questions that you have, like, what's happening in vacation rentals today. So today we want to talk about what could you do to stand out beyond the aesthetics, right? So beyond the shiny listing. And one of those things we'll tap into your brand. That's where Kristen really, really shines, the brand and how to be that. And there's some things that blow our mind, and those things that we don't see in brand. SEO versus distribution. Is it a competition when it comes to your book direct strategy? And then we also things with visibility and standing out in the crowd that go to safety and regulations and why we book the way that we book, right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on some of that?
Well, I think too, bringing us back to like the idea for this episode when we were talking about like the saturation in the market right now, and you and I have both historically been a book direct evangelist, and we kind of realized that both of us had recent experiences where we did not book direct, and so
We're
wanted,
hypocrites. We are
yeah,
hypocrites, everybody. It is that simple. We realized it. We both messaged each other about it. We're hypocrites.
yeah. Do you want to share your example first, or want me to share mine?
Go for yours first. Go share yours
Okay.
first.
So my family and I, my husband and our two daughters have started vacationing every summer for a week in a small town in southeastern Maine, ocean type destination. And in that particular market, there are a lot of operators, but not a lot of really not a lot of operators who are offering all the amenities and things that I would need coming from South Carolina to stay in a vacation rental.
To
A lot
Maine.
of those, yeah, to Maine,
Yeah.
exactly. It's a little bit of a hike. Um, a lot of them don't provide linen. So the last thing I want to do when I'm schlepping my family up there from South Carolina is I don't want to worry about the sheets or towels, and I don't want to have to pay to add them on. So that's, kind of one reason. So
And
that
do you
led
find so? I
me.
mean, since you booked, so yeah, you're
Mhm.
leading to so what we're saying is more owners in that market are actually providing these things
Yeah,
from
exactly.
property
So
managers.
exactly. So I always start my research looking for, the direct local property managers in that market. That's one of the things I am really passionate about. And one of the things that at the 100 Collection, we're really focused on kind of um, bringing into the forefront, right? Putting the spotlight on these
Mm-hmm.
local brands and their local markets and what they do in their communities. But in this instance, I came up short when I was looking at the local management options. And so I turned to an OTA and was able to find a property at a really nice property that had linens provided. It's walking distance to the beach, walking distance to town. and it was a better price than I would pay like with any of the other professional
And
operators in that market, and it came
which
with the linens
OTA
included.
did you use, may I ask?
Yeah, so it was Airbnb. So I was looking at Vrbo and Airbnb. Those are the two predominant channels in that particular destination, and just so happened to find the right property on Airbnb. So
Yeah.
it's a local to the community that they have 4 properties that they are self-managing and had really, really great reviews. And like I said, the linens are provided, all of the safety kind of things that we are going to speak to
Hmm.
later on in this webinar. From what I could tell from the listing and the photos, I had no concerns on the safety front, but you had a similar experience with your Mother's Day trip and
Hmm.
really like, as you and I were talking about evaluating the different there's so many options, right? Like markets are saturated, there's a lot of supply. And so,
And there's so many options for us,
yeah,
right? The
yeah,
people who do this is our day job. Not,
yeah,
like, and it has been our day jobs over a decade, right? In my
yeah.
experience, that what happened with mine was, I was going to do a beach trip in Crystal Beach, Texas. So it's kind of close to Galveston, but on the other side of the ferry. Not a lot of property managers out there. Only about an hour from my house, 4 adults, 4 kids, maybe more. I was in there and I went to Google vacation rentals first. I do have to say, I was like, you know what? I can't think of someone on the top of my head. Let me make this easy for myself with time. Put Google vacation rentals. Y'all, it was difficult. Not gonna lie. And I'm also not a person who books my flights through Google's. I do Southwest flights. So I wonder if that. So
Mhm.
I immediately got a little overwhelmed. Went to Airbnb, and one of the first listings I clicked on was the one that I booked. What It wasn't a property manager, which is what I go look for. She had tons of reviews. She had pictures of the cabinets stacked with sippy cups, kids' plates. I mean, everything that we needed. Like, truthfully, it worked out, which made it so less anxiety when it came to packing for an hour away. Well, mine
Yeah.
wasn't as much of a trek for you, right? But
Mhm.
I don't know about you, but when you have to drive, we pack way more than we
Oh yeah.
fly. We
Hmm.
ended up forgetting, like, I think a pack and play, a high chair, which I'm sorry, one of my kids has to go in a high chair at times, so I would never sit down, right? All these things. We got there and we pulled up the listing on the drive, and it just, instead of going to Walmart, right, on the way to buy all these things, we found everything that was there. It was amazing. She had already sent us a welcome guide. So it really was. I mean, a complete different experience that I would want to go to. And when I say I'm a hypocrite, I think I was on a webinar like 3 days before I booked this trip, guys, where I said I never, I always book direct. But I realized there's an evolution of travelers, right? And how do we support those people, right? So I think one, let's go into brand. I mean, it kind of just makes sense, right? So how are you standing out in the crowd if you're the crowd of owners or the crowd of managers, right? How are you building that brand and what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think there are many opportunities for in-unit branding, whether you are like a host that has a handful of properties you're representing or like you're a management company. There are ways to thoughtfully incorporate your brand into the property, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
if somebody is discovering you on Airbnb or Vrbo, ideally you should be trying to convert them to a direct guest. And again, this is assuming you're a property manager listening to this. If you're a host, you may not have a platform to convert them to be a direct guest, but there are opportunities for in unit branding to make sure the guest knows who they are booking with. They
Right.
didn't just see a listing on Airbnb. They are getting to know your brand because they're seeing it
Mm-hmm.
within the property. And there's ways to do that that's really thoughtful.
And mine, like for mine, for the homeowner, right? It was Kim's
Mhm.
condo, right? And she had
Yeah.
things all over that, and I still remember in my head, like, I think, and I wrote, this great review. I'm talking with her and helping her. She didn't have a direct booking website, so helping her to get one, right? Because I,
Yeah.
really kind of showing her what she could do out of that. But it's also important. So when you're standing out of the crowd, when you're building that brand, whether or not you're building that brand to book direct, or you're building that brand for people to find you again in other OTAs, it's all diversity at the end of the day, right? Let me ask you a question right now. Yeah, we're both people who we book direct evangelists. We book direct. We know, between both of us, we know so many property managers out there.
Mhm.
We
Yeah.
book on Airbnb. When's the last time you booked a hotel?
Oh gosh. Well,
Well, I mean, other than the fact that your husband's deployed right now.
I was
So
gonna say, so my
let's,
husband's deployed. Travel has been, kind of less compared to what it normally is, but we're going to New Orleans over July 4th to visit my mother-in-law, and so we do have hotels booked for New Orleans.
that's funny. And that's kind of one thing that, we had mentioned whenever we were talking about this episode too, is it, creating that diversity, because travelers just want different things, and understanding that and being everywhere so they can find you what there is, but understanding who you're
Mhm.
talking to, right? Who's going. Like, you're right. If me and my husband are traveling by myself, I really love a hotel, man. I'm sorry. And I am not loyal to any hotel platform. No loyalty whatsoever. You guys, I think you said your husband's
Yeah,
super
we're
loyal to
super
Marriott.
loyal. Yeah, we're super loyal to Marriott for sure. But I think it brings up a good question. Why is like why when you and your husband are going somewhere, like what about a hotel is why is that your accommodation of choice?
And I'm gonna, off top of my head, I'm gonna say it seems easy.
Yeah,
It's easy, right? I
yeah,
know what's going to be there. I know that I'm not going to have any trouble getting into that property, no matter what's going to happen. And when right at this moment, my husband and I are traveling, right, we don't have kids. I want the most. I do not want one hiccup.
yeah, totally.
I think that's what it goes to, and I don't need that big. It's easier to go and say, okay, I'm going to New Orleans, and New Orleans is maybe a bad place because that's where Hostiva is at. I always say in Hostiva in New Orleans, but I'm going to New Orleans, right? And I'm looking for a hotel. That I can go Google, look at hotels. What am I going to do? Am I going for a Saints game? Okay, I'm going to look for the hotels in this
Yeah.
area, and then we might drill down into that. That's a little bit easier, right, for you to do in my expectations of
Hmm.
what that's going to be. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think for me, when we choose hotels as an accommodation type, it's mainly like consistency and like to your point, knowing what to expect and not, not wanting any hiccups, whether it's just me and my husband or me and our kids. But I think to tie this back to like differentiating your listing and how to stand out amongst like a crowded field of,
mm-hmm.
other similar listings, I think there's a couple of takeaways, and I don't know that we even touched on this last time. It's like kind of a light bulb moment for me, but I think what you just said now, Talia, about when you are at a hotel, you want just as smooth of an experience as possible. You know what to expect. You don't want any
Mm-hmm.
hiccups. There's definitely some takeaways for vacation rental hosts or managers in that statement, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think back to what you were saying about Kim's condo, how you had a very detailed listing. You knew exactly what to expect as far as what was provided, kid equipment wise, and whether that was like the sippy cups or
Mm-hmm.
kid type dishware or the high chair or pack and play, like you knew what you were.
I knew everything, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I
you
was
knew what to expect.
not. I knew what to expect in every aspect. You were right, and hotels you expect they're not to, like, you don't. There's not going to be that many things there, but sometimes it's a there's no regulation or standard across vacation rentals that every vacation rental is going to offer this thing.
Hmm.
And I think you're right. That's a big thing that's in there. I think one thing that I wanted to, before we go past our first couple segments, or sure, the evolution of the traveler and standing out in the crowd, I want to go back to a little bit of branding stuff on
Hmm.
here, because you and I noticed this a long time ago. Kristen and I,
Hmm.
not a long time ago, but Kristen and I are just, little old salespeople who had to go hunt and find people that we wanted to work with, right? And I remember at that time, you would go find websites, right? And we had territories, right? So
Yeah.
you'd have to see what was blows your mind. I want to see, when you look at somebody's website, could you find out where they were?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and I'm still seeing that more than I
And
would
I kind of bring
expect.
that evolution. Like, I
Yeah.
remember us calling that out, and still to this day, it takes me a long time sometimes to find out, where are your properties? Am
Yeah,
I in the right
so
place?
exactly. So make sure on your homepage of your direct site, if you have one, that you are sharing in which destination you are operating and have properties. The other thing about that is like from an SEO perspective, like you want to make sure you're working that into your page. And oftentimes I'll have to click around to like 4, 5, 6 pages even to actually figure out what destination
I
I'm
found that
looking at.
sometimes, so I've done, there's like these click throughs that I've done, right? So you get to the page, I can't find it. I'll go to the contact us page because I'm like, okay, maybe they have an address. And if
Yeah.
they don't have it there, and then I'm like, okay, let me go to a booking. And then I go to the map of the booking in some direct pages. The map for some reason isn't working. And then I'm like, okay, where is this place, right? And that's
Yeah.
also a good point in SEO. Like, we've said this things with a lot when it comes to listing optimization, SEO. Like, if there's something you want to know about the property, the location, the name, who you are, you need to say it 3 times on every page that someone's looking at, right? So
Mhm.
if you know your front page, where you are, each location, you know, this amazing cabin in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, right? You know, keep saying it because that's how Google Vacation Rentals operates. And maybe I'm wrong. Somebody can let me know because I'm still not really sure how to use it. But it's it's operating based on long tail keyword search at the end of the day, if unless you're using the filters.
Yeah, and I think the other kind of back to the basic type recommendation that we have just on like the listing page or just kind of generally is making sure that you're spelling out like numerically what the occupancy is, not literally spelling it out, but like including the occupancy.
You're gonna
Don't
see somebody
make
said someone. Kristen told me to spell
Yes,
out
Kristen told me
six
to
people.
to spell out six SIX. Yeah, no, so not literally spell it out, but make sure that on your listing page it is obvious what the occupancy is for the property. Don't make your guests do math and try to figure out how many guests can fit in each bedroom to get the total occupancy. Make sure that is apparent on your listing page, on your direct site, but also on the OTAs too, because if I can't immediately tell how many
Mm-hmm.
properties or how many people a property can sleep, even if it's just a 3 or 4 bedroom. If I'm traveling with like my sister, or, like a friend and their family, I just want to know how
Yeah.
many heads can fit in these beds.
And you know, I
Spell it
never
out.
you pointed that out for me, and I sat there and I thought about it for a lot
Mhm.
because it's funny, I haven't even gone through and practice. Like, I want to go practice, and now I realize you're right. Like, I know there's an occupancy portion, but maybe I'm looking over the one portion that's in it. But every time I do it, I sit there and I go through the bed configuration and
Yeah.
I count. I count heads and beds, and I'm like, okay, so niece and nephew there, son's there,
Yeah.
you know, husband couch. Just kidding. You know,
It's
go.
it's helpful to have the ballpark, right? Of like just being able to see really quickly without having to do that mental math of like which bedrooms everyone is going to be in, which that'll come down the road, but like just being able to
And
see
that's
ballpark, okay, this is going to work for my group.
we are in the business of selling memories.
Yeah.
Like, literally, we are selling memories. That is the asset.
Yeah.
Is the memory, right? So create the memory, create the story for those people, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, you don't have a lot in your headline. Keep your headline simple, make them go. You have the photo captions, which I feel like I have been saying for years and years and years.
Yes.
Write the story in the photo caption. Write it again in your description. It doesn't have to be a lot, just these key things that are going to want people knowing more. And I also say, in your description, you know, right? Like, if you can do a couple, you know, like a little paragraph, couple bullet points, and then flood all the information in it, right? As a person who books, whether or not I'm booking Airbnb, Book Direct, Verbo, on Marriott, or you know, on some kind of hotel, I usually don't read all of that right away. I book
Yeah.
it, and when I get close to the stay, because I know I'm like, oh, they're going to probably send me a confirmation that's going to give me all these details, or I'll find the listing and
Yeah.
I'll go look at it later. I really don't want to talk to anybody
Mhm.
if I don't have to.
Yeah. No, and I think two other things as we're kind of like delved into the listing optimization
Mm-hmm.
part of the conversation is I always say this and it still surprises people when I tell them this. None of us really know exactly how the algorithms on the OTA work as far
Do
as
you think the OTAs know how the algorithms work?
I think they hold it close to the chest for sure.
Yeah.
But we do know that if you have a lot of lookers but not bookers, that's going to push your listing down in the search results. So when we're talking about standing out amongst a crowded crowd, if you have homeowners that are just stalking their listing on Airbnb or Vrbo because they want to keep up with
Mm-hmm.
reviews or they want to check on the calendar or whatever they're doing as they're visiting the listing, that's actually harming how the listing is appearing in search and is harming how
Mm-hmm.
often the listing is being served to people that are searching. And it's recognizing those owners as being lookers and not bookers, and so it's just going to push it
Mhm.
down in the search results. So if
If
you
you
have
look and
owners that
don't
are
book,
doing
it's gonna,
that,
yeah, instruct them
educate
not to.
them on not doing that
And that's also
with
where it's
love.
important for you, right, with love.
Yeah.
And that's important for you, like as a property manager, and you're like, oh, that is a good point. Like, yeah, looking every now and then, but they can't be opening it every day. And just like if you had a paid Facebook ad going, like you should not click on that paid Facebook
Yeah.
ad, right?
Right.
Conversion is like there's a very large funnel in every conversion page, right? But it's going to start at who's clicking, who's going to this page, and where are they going, like through the funnel, right? So part of that, but as a property manager, making sure that you have a tech stack or technology that can give owners access and portals that they can see this information. They could keep their PMS software dashboard up all day long, right? And they can see, information that's coming in. It's, I understand hospitality is it's a 24/7 business, right? But if we are in this part of what we're doing is giving the transparency to everyone around, which gives us
Mhm.
to our last segment that I want to kind of talk about here in our last five to maybe I'll keep you 10 minutes
Yeah, you're good.
in here, right? So it's two things on here, right? So it's this fun thing of owners versus property managers. Are we
Mhm.
going into a world where owners are taking their properties back? Co-hosting, or are we seeing this new traditional thing? And this kind of comes from when I started at Verbo. When I left Verbo, it was around 2017, 2018, and 75% of the revenue came from homeowners. 25% of the revenue came from property managers. Today, that's about 50-50, right?
Mhm.
Which, it's a, I, I always thought property management was more, right? But I'm interested to see where are we going to go with Airbnb taking attention to detail, everyone requiring more out of these listings, and how does safety play a part of that? And we could have a whole nother segment on safety, but I think that what is passionate to me and Kristen, and what is passionate for the reasons why we have been booking the patterns that we are booking, has to do with safety.
Yeah, I think we have been fortunate to be like in the periphery of people in the industry like Justin Ford and Eric Thibodeau over the last few years. And so learning by osmosis, both of them are really
Mm-hmm.
great follows on LinkedIn. If you're watching this and not connecting with them, they're kind of the
Mm-hmm.
really prominent safety gurus for our industry. And so I have a lot of respect for what both of them are doing because at the end of the day, going back to your hotel example, guests want properties that they're going to feel safe in. I would never have a safety concern checking into a hotel, and we don't want guests to be worried about their safety in a vacation rental. Um, One of the things I feel like I'd be remiss not to point out because we were talking about like the high chairs and the pack and play at Kim's condo and or
Yeah,
Kim's place when you saw that. If you have those type of offerings in
making
your vacation
sure.
rental, making sure you have a plan for periodically inspecting those pieces of equipment to make sure they're still in good condition, make sure they're cleaned, and making sure you're staying up to date on any
Truly,
type of
that's
like recalls or
every
anything
piece of
like that.
equipment.
Yeah,
That's every piece of equipment that's in the
yeah,
house, right? And gonna
yeah.
let everyone know, and we're gonna keep talking about this a little more, but I actually, talked with Eric Thibodeau from Safer VRs, and we're going to offer everyone a free downloadable safety checklist
Hmm.
from this episode that you can do, and it's grills, like grills, anything. I mean, really safety check of everything that's in the house and what you're going to use. Carbon monoxide detectors. I
Yeah.
have to say, I never thought about a carbon monoxide detector in my life until the past like 10 years of being in this industry. And now I won't book a vacation rental without it in there. And now I'm to a point where you watch Justin Ford. Should I be traveling with my own?
Yeah, and I think, we're talking about here how to make your listing stand out. And I think safety is a very underlooked but very impactful way to stick out from the crowd,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I commonly just, again, learning from osmosis from people like Justin and Eric, like as I'm looking at different listings, things will pop out to me, right? Like, oh, that grill is on the deck and it's covered by the deck above. Like, that's not good. This is an owner, they have a hot tub. Are they trained on how to properly,
Mm-hmm.
clean these hot tubs or servicing the hot tubs? What type of training have they had on that? Am I going to get a chemical burn or am I going to electrocute myself by going into this hot tub? Or looking at a bedroom and it's like,
Mhm.
okay, this doesn't appear to be to have a legal egress. And so I think just highlighting the safety protocols that you are implementing in your business or in your listing and having that really prominent. You had a really good example from when you guys were at the beach for your Mother's Day weekend, kind of walking around and your observation with
Mhm.
other rentals. I feel like that's worth sharing too.
And I think that I totally forgot about that, right? And so it has to do with, helping people understand that, yes, I have a pool or a hot tub, and what measures you have taken to be safe around that. And so my
Yeah.
example was there were a lot of properties we could walk to the beach, right? And so we're walking to the beach with the kids and everyone. They're like, why didn't we book that property? That one's got a pool. That's cool. Yeah, there's no fence around the pool.
Yeah.
So there's no way I could take any of my children there, right, without me having a good time or any safety measures that were around there, right? So that's
Yeah.
something that means a lot to me and understanding that. And one thing that, I want to say maybe this doesn't happen often, and Justin may watch this be like, no, Talia, I'm glad you say this. This does happen often, right? Old properties with balconies, that are wooden and stuff. But we see all the time. Somebody was standing on a balcony in vacation rentals, and the balcony fell while they were on a beach trip partying. I have one of my worst fears, right? Who's
Yeah.
maintaining these buildings? And it doesn't seem likely, right? But these things truly happen, right?
They
And
truly happen. And
whether
yeah.
or not you're owner or manager, what we want to bring light to this is as a community bringing regulations around safety and how do we support each other, giving all of the right documentation that no matter who you are, we're sticking
Yeah.
to these standards. And you talk about safety in your listing, right? So that it can
Yeah.
help you stand out.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. These things can and do happen, and it's not, a fun subject matter to talk about, but it is the reality. And
Mm.
anyone that is operating a vacation rental business or, you're a host putting your properties up on Airbnb, there is liability, and you should be taking every step to make sure you are covered and that your guests feel safe in your property, because that is something that can and does happen um, more frequently than we would imagine, right? Unfortunately.
Yeah, yes, and it's staying vigilant in everything, right? As we're here to make sure like that we want vacation rentals to win always, no matter who
Yeah.
you are, and to do right by who's there and how do we get there. And right now we're all everything's like, what's really happening with supply. I want to ask you, Kristen, since before we end the episode, right? The
Hmm.
reason we've been having all these conversations, why everyone's talking about this is supply's been high, demand's been down. We're seeing lower occupancy, ADR, all those fun
Yeah.
KPIs. What do you think the next 3 to 6 months look like for us?
Yeah, I think one of the things I often would say when I still was working in like revenue management on a daily basis is nobody has a crystal ball, right, to know like exactly what's going to happen. I think that the industry kind of overall has seen really kind of stark increases in supply, putting just a lot of compression on like the other available rentals in that market and just compressing demand, just
Mm-hmm.
because there are more choices. I think that we will continue to see pre-pandemic travel patterns kind of normalize, like what we've been seeing over the last couple of
Mm-hmm.
years. And with that being said, like there are probably owners that purchased at, kind of the peak of the market between now and the last couple of years that are expecting COVID era returns. And so I think it'll be interesting to see if those folks exit the market altogether and what
Mm-hmm.
impact that will have on the supply side.
Yeah, what would that have on the supply side and real estate in
Yeah.
general, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm waiting to see that. I think we all are, regardless what area you are, right?
Yeah.
What that's gonna look like. Well,
Right.
thank you so much for your time today, Kristen. I think that we could talk about so many more things. And if anyone watching this wants to dig into listing optimization, standing out in the crowd, SEO, branding, safety, prop tech, really whatever it
Yeah.
is that you think one of us might know, we really would love to help you with that and
Yeah.
help you shine and help guide you to the right people who can be there, right? This is, we are here for a reason. And my reason has always been to help small businesses grow. And it's
Yeah,
great
ditto.
that
Yep.
the small business is vacation rentals.
Right.
So stay tuned. Next week, we are going to have another episode before me, Tony, our co-founder, Genesis, our client success manager, head off to the IMN conference in Austin, June 24th and 25th. So we'll have a little sneak peek of what we plan to talk about there for everybody. I believe we might have a special code for people who want to register and haven't registered yet, to get 20% off. And as always, is there any last things that you would like to leave our listeners with?
I think that I will just say, take a look at your photography, and that's one kind of
I thought we
really,
missed
I was
it.
gonna work it in somewhere. That's one really easy thing you could do to make your listing stand out. And don't forget that how you're presenting your properties online is an extension of your brand. So even if your properties are booking really well with not great quality photography, it's still worthwhile to redo it or to reshoot it. So
I definitely thought you were potentially going to tell me, nope, I don't have anything to share with people.
you
So
know,
I'm
I
happy
always
that you
do.
had that great topic. Well, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for listening. Don't forget to get the free download of the safety checklist provided by Eric Thibodeau with Safer VR. Go follow Justin Ford with Breeza as well. If you want to know about safety, those are the guys.
Absolutely.
They have everything to tell you. Have a wonderful, wonderful.
Thanks for having me, Talia.
Bye.
Bye.